Welcome to Mindful Chatting, a podcast where therapy meets real life. I'm Kristen, a therapist, business owner, and a lifelong student of what it means to fully show up in our relationships, in our work, and in our healing. Here, we unpack mental health concepts, explore mindfulness tools, and talk through the messy, beautiful, in-between moments that shape us. Whether you're a fellow clinician, a curious listener, or someone navigating your own growth, this space is for you. Let's chat. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Mindful Chatting. I want you to go ahead and settle in. And that means grab your comfort drink, your blanket, whatever helps you just ground. Because today we're talking about something every ADHD adult knows very intimately. Why you're always late, even when you absolutely care about the thing that you're trying to show up for. If time feels slippery, distorted, or like it moves at a different speed for you than everyone else, trust me, you are not alone. I experience the exact same thing. And you're not irresponsible, even though I'm sure people have told you otherwise. What you're actually experiencing is something called time blindness, and it's deeply connected to ADHD. So we're going to go into it and describe it a little bit more and talk about some tips and tricks we can do to help alleviate this executive dysfunctioning. Let's go. So as we get into this, let's kind of define what time blindness feels like. So you know you need to leave at, let's say, 3:15, but you look up that and it's like 3:12 and you're still in your pajamas. Or you believe something will take about 10 minutes when it somehow takes you 45 minutes. Or you overestimate what you can fit into an hour and underestimate how long the transitions from one thing to another actually take for you. This doesn't really mean that you don't care. If actually it means the opposite. It's that ADHD disrupts this internal sense of time. And that neurotypical brain is really good at, but we're just not. And time management is not what they call discipline. And I'm sure you've been given that feedback of that you just need to discipline your time a little bit more. It's actually an executive functioning skill that evolves as we grow up. And ultimately, the whole goal is that you have it pretty pegged down by the time you're an adult. But if we never learn the skills and the tricks and tips to deal with our ADHD brain as a child, these things never really get better. And if anything, we will find accommodations and ways that make sense for our brain, when really we could actually be creating more mental energy and mental fatigue trying to do these what we call little hacks to try to deal with our ADHD, when instead we could be finding simpler things. So remember, time blindness or time management as an executive functioning skill involves estimating how long things take. It also talks about sequencing tasks in an order. So if you've ever had a project and not know how to sequence things in order to get them done, this is what time management looks like, but it's also that time executive functioning skill that's not necessarily been fleshed out for you. This also includes planning ahead. So be able to go, I have a project or an assignment due on Friday. What do I need to do throughout the week in order to get that completed by Thursday, not Friday, the deadline? So planning ahead as part of this executive functioning skill. We also, part of this skill is adjusting when things shift. So if you've ever been involved or hyper-focused on something and then an email comes in and then you have to switch gears to address something that may be a little bit more urgent compared to the project you're doing, that transitioning and adjusting between shifts and tasks is also that executive functioning skill with time. Lastly, tracking time as it passes. So the ability to feel time move when it feels like maybe 5 minutes has passed when it's actually been 45. And all of that is part of this executive functioning when it comes to time. And ADHD brains struggle with this because they experience time as really actually two states, now and not now. And as rigid and as black as white as that sounds, it's true. I'm either working on the thing right now or I've pushed it out of my head because it's not happening right now. And so I'm not going to think about it. I'll give you an example. Thanksgiving is coming up, even though you're probably not going to get this episode till December, but this is a really good example of this. of, family's going to call you. If you're hosting Thanksgiving, they're going to call you and say, like, what do you want me to bring? And they're calling me 2 weeks in advance. Pretty reasonable. But I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving's not happening right now for me. If anything, during this week, I'm working on my dissertation defense. I am working on finishing up things before the Thanksgiving break for school. I'm also trying to wrap up work so that I can actually take a break during Thanksgiving and not go back to my laptop when everybody leaves. So that's what's happening right now. Thanksgiving is not now. And so I'm not going to think about Thanksgiving until probably 2 or 3 days before, which sounds crazy to neurotypical people. But this is a good example of how ADHD brains decipher between now and not now, because everything happening later feels really emotionally distant for us. And everything that's happening right now feels absolutely urgent. And that is going to take all of my mental energy and all of our focus in the now. Everything else gets tabled. If you're nodding along and thinking, yep, this is totally me, I want you to stop and take a free quiz. I have made a quiz about what's your ADHD struggle, and it'll only take a couple of minutes. And at the end, there's a secret freebie waiting for you that will help you start working on your struggle right away. Look in the show notes for the link. So let's get into the research about what studies have shown that ADHD brains have. And studies have shown that we have this weaker internal time tracking, or that internal clock that some people say, of the ability to feel time move. And our internal tracking is kind of weaker and not maybe as sensitive as the neurotypical brain. So we have difficulty sensing when time has elapsed and how much time has elapsed. We also have reduced prefrontal activation in time estimation. So we need our prefrontal cortex, which is our front part of our head, and it's right behind our forehead. And this does all of our executive functioning, really, in that it plans time ahead, thinks about things ahead. It's our critical thinking part of our brain. And this reduced prefrontal activation, which means our part of our brain, which has this executive functioning skill, is going to be reduced, which means if you were to look at your brain under a scan, it is not going to light up as often or as it should with a so-called neurotypical brain. Our activation of that part of our brain takes more effort, more momentum, and that's why things feel sluggish and heavier for us. And that includes the in-time estimation of how long things should take. So the way our brain is activated and the way it takes so much time to do, this is why we can't estimate how much time it should take. And this kind of leads into this underdeveloped foresight of our ability to go, well, I'll just check my email. It'll take 5 minutes. And it's taking me 30 because now I feel like I can respond to all of these emails in my head quickly, but I didn't realize that I only thought of 5 minutes. And now I'm running into another meeting, or I'm late to an appointment, or I haven't left yet, or, oh my gosh, I didn't even work on the project that I had batched my time for. And so this kind of creates this poor future self-connectedness because we're thinking about the now. We're not thinking about our future self. We're not thinking about what does our future self need in order to feel more productive or more prepared for the not now time because we're thinking about now. But what does this mean? All of this information, because your brain isn't ignoring time. It literally can't feel it. And when you can't feel time passing, you can't accurately plan for it. And then you combine that with ADHD's executive functioning delays and our emotional immediacy to things, and you're going to get chronic lateness, starting too late, losing track of time while you're hyperfocused, or struggling to switch and shift between tasks. And again, this is not a character flaw of you. This is neurology. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is because if you understand this part of yourself, you can understand what you need in order to make yourself more productive and build that self-trust and confidence to be able to manage the tasks that you have in front of you. If you're working on staying present and grounded, which me too, we all need, especially when your brain wants to spiral into what we call disconnection. Yeah, it's Brain FM. It's musically designed to help ADHD brains, well, really any brain, to focus, relax, sleep, and I use it almost daily. If you want to try it, I've dropped my link in the show notes. And if you're looking for planning tools and ADHD resources, they're in there too. I think what's even harder about time blindness is it's not just frustrating, it's actually shame inducing because we feel embarrassed, and I know I do, when I walk in late. Like, why am I late to this? Or why did I schedule something knowing that I was going to be late to this? So you have this internal shame that's going on inside of you when you show up embarrassed. And I think it creates this misunderstanding, and then you feel misunderstood when people assume that the reason why you're showing up late is because you didn't prioritize them. And so that makes you feel like that you don't care, which is actually quite the opposite. I do feel that people with ADHD do care a lot about these things. And we think about a lot of these things to the point where it mentally fatigues us. And something that we have to consider when we're thinking about time management that maybe the neurotypical doesn't actually have to consider or think about. And then we feel guilty. I know I feel guilty when I'm always running behind, or I feel like I didn't manage my time correctly because it looks to other people that I'm chaotic, that I'm disorganized, that I don't have my shit together. And that's, again, embarrassing. And then I feel guilty because it looks like that I didn't know what I was doing. And then I feel overwhelmed because I'm trying to now overcompensate for it or fix it with more systems or more things that I need to do. And I'm actually applying neurotypical things to an ADHD brain. And yeah, it all sounds great on paper and on theory, but because I have this prefrontal lower activation, you're going to look at the system and go, great, it's going to save my life. And then you start doing it and it doesn't work. And then you feel broken and you feel like, why isn't this working for me? Everyone said that this was going to help me and it didn't. And this is the cycle that I think that a lot of people with ADHD get into, and it's all internal. Nobody sees that we're going through this madness in our head. But I think lateness, when it comes to ADHD adults, is rarely about disrespect. It's about how your nervous system actually perceives your time and not how much you value the people or the thing that you're trying to prioritize. And the truth is just simple with us. ADHD brains don't internalize time. So we have to externalize it. And this is what this is going to look like, because I'm going to give you some ways that we can externalize time. Now, a lot of these are going to sound really simple, and a lot of these things you probably heard from other people, but I want you to think about how do you externalize it for yourself instead of making it something that you have to do for you. So visible timers, not hidden by time. So that means we need something that's visually going to cue our time. So clocks everywhere can be helpful, but if clocks are everywhere, they kind of fall back into the background space. So we actually need timers. We need timers with lights. We need times that give us visual countdowns, not where we're going. So timers can be great, especially if they're auditory. But again, I don't know about you, I've snoozed a lot of timers and still ended up not managing my time well, or thinking, oh, I have 5 more minutes. I think if you create a visual countdown, and I can put a link in the show notes for some timers that I think would be really helpful for people with ADHD that I use with kids in my counseling sessions to be able for them to start perceiving time. And so using a visual countdown, a timer that tells you how much time you have left can help you perceive the thing that you're working on. Do I have that time available to me with how much I have left, instead of it going, I have 5 minutes. 5 minutes means nothing to us. But if I know I have, 60 seconds, well, that's going to feel a lot different than knowing I have a minute ahead of me. It sounds really complex and sounds really weird, but it's a way of perception of time. Another thing is using alarms for transitions, not tasks. So we know that ADHD people struggle between shifting tasks, but not during them. So if I'm ending something and moving to another thing, I need help with an alarm. So for example, if I'm working on a project and I'm pretty hyper-focused on it, and I see my email come in and I maybe query it or triage it and go, oh, this is something I really actually need to respond to right now. I'm going to set an alarm or a timer to go, I'm only going to work on this particular thing for 5 minutes. And once I'm done answering that email or doing that urgent thing, I'm going to come back by that alarm to come back to the original project. Because I think what happens is we shift tasks, we forget the original task that we're coming back to. Because if I'm going to look at my email, well, I'm going to look at all the emails, not just the urgent one that came through. And then here I am 20, 30 minutes into checking my email. And then that could be going to a website, looking up particular things. And I completely abandoned the original task that I was doing. So the alarms are not necessarily for coming into the next thing. It's coming back to the original thing that you're working on. Another thing is body doubling. And this is to stay anchored in that moment. And remember, co-regulation actually brings a lot of time awareness. Because if, let's say, I'm in my home office and let's say I have my husband working on something that's completely different from mine, I'm going to notice when he's moving around the room. I'm going to notice if he shifts from a different task to another. And that also helps me perceive time differently than focusing on my own time awareness. I'm focusing on time as a continuum that's going on in the room. So just another way to help feel and perceive time differently by using someone in the room when you're body doubling. Another thing you can do is color coding your day. So if you're one of those people that likes to time batch and likes to create theme days, and I'm going to go into more episodes about what planning could look like for ADHD, but for right now in this particular sense, color coding your day could be physically coloring into a planner or color coding into your digital planner for certain things. Color helps your brain feel time. And that sounds weird, but when you're going from one color to the next, like let's say I have 3 hours of batch time. In the first hour, I'm going to work on something with my business. I may color code that yellow. And so again, I'm going to use a lot of these hacks layered. So I'm going to set a timer for an hour, a visual countdown for an hour, and I'm only working on the things that are in yellow. And if I'm pretty good about prepping my day, which is another hack that I'll go into in later episodes, I know what I'm working on during that yellow space of time. And when that visual timer goes off, I'm going back to my planner or my digital calendar to go, okay, now I'm working on blue, which blue is, let's say, school. And so it's not so much about, color. Color is helping you block how much time you have, which is another way of perception of time. Also, planning backwards. So instead of leaving at 3:15, I want you to think about I'm going to get up from my desk at 3:10 and I'm going to put my shoes on at 3:10. And then 3:05, let's say I need to go to the restroom. And then let's say at 2:50, I'm going to stop working because at 2:50, I'm going to stop working. I'm buffering in maybe a 5-minute span of like putting all of my stuff away or prepping my desk for the next day to remind me what I have to do tomorrow. And then maybe I have a timer that goes off at 2:30 to go, hey, you only have 20 minutes before you have to start packing up. What can you actually do with 20 minutes of time? And this breaks time into chunks for your brain. And this helps grasp the perception of how much time is going through. I know there's a lot of alarms, and that's why it's okay to break it up. So like, for example, you could use an auditory alarm for the 2:30 wrap up and maybe an auditory alarm for the stop working, but maybe you use visual timers for the bathroom or the shoes or leaving as a way of breaking it up so you don't get wrapped up in this background noise or background visual cues, because you want to break it up for your brain so that you stop and you actually think about what's happening next. Hey, if you want to be first in line for the ADHD Planning Stack Pilot course, make sure you sign up to get early access, discounts, and extra support. The link is in the show notes. As a reminder, time blindness isn't a moral failure. It isn't about not caring. It isn't about not being considerate. It's the lived experience of a brain that perceives time very differently than the world around it. And once you understand that, once you stop moralizing it, you can start supporting it in a way that actually works for you. If you want to know whether time blindness is your biggest ADHD struggle, I want you to take the What's Your ADHD Struggle quiz. The link is in the show notes. And then plus your quiz results unlocks a free offer that can go deeper into these executive functioning habits and tips and tricks that can help you understand your ADHD better. I want to thank you for spending time with me today. I hope this helped you understand your ADHD with a little more compassion and a lot less shame. And again, be gentle with your mind.